They said the sky doesn't speak to the unwanted. They said heaven ignores the cries of those born in the shadows. But on a night when the stars burned brighter than they should have, a child with scars on his back and emptiness in his eyes proved them all wrong. His name was Kael, 8 years old, abandoned at 3, raised by no one. The orphanage didn't want him because he was too quiet, too still, like something inside him had already died. The streets didn't want him because he was too weak, too small to fight for scraps. Even the dogs that roamed the alleys would walk past him without a second glance. He was invisible, a ghost in a world that had no space for ghosts. Every night, Kael would climb to the roof of an old, abandoned building at the edge of the city. It was the only place where the noise stopped, where the voices that told him he was nothing couldn't reach. He would sit there, knees pulled to his chest, staring up at the sky. Not praying, not hoping, just staring. Because what do you pray for when you've already been forgotten? But the sky saw him, even when the world didn't, even when he didn't see himself. One night, something changed. The air grew heavy. The stars seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Kael felt it before he saw it, a warmth on his skin, a pressure in his chest, and then a voice, not from the wind, not from his mind, from somewhere deeper, somewhere infinite. "Why do you come here, broken child?" Kael didn't move. His body had learned not to flinch, not to react. But his heart, that cold, silent thing, it trembled. "Who's there?" he whispered, his voice cracked and dry. "I am the one who watches when no one else does. I am the silence between your breaths, the weight you carry when you think you carry nothing. Why do you come here?" Kael's hands gripped his knees tighter. His eyes scanned the rooftop, the city below, the vast emptiness above. Nothing. No one. "I come here because there's nowhere else. Because up here I don't have to pretend I matter." The voice was quiet for a moment. Then it spoke again, softer this time, sadder. "And if I told you that you were chosen, would you believe me?" Kael laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound, the kind of laugh that comes from a place where hope went to die. Chosen for what? To be forgotten? To be nothing? I've been chosen for that my whole life. No, chosen to carry something the world is not ready to understand. Chosen to hold a light so bright that even you cannot see it yet. Kael stood up. His legs shook, not from fear, from anger, from years of swallowing pain and pretending it didn't cut. "Then why does it hurt so much?" he shouted into the night. "Why does every day feel like I'm drowning? Why doesn't anyone see me? Why doesn't anyone care?" The sky didn't answer right away, but the stars, those distant, cold points of light, they began to move, slowly at first, then faster, swirling, spiraling down toward him like a river of fire and silver. Kael stumbled back, his heart slamming against his ribs. The lights surrounded him, not burning, not blinding, just holding him, like arms he'd never felt before. And then he saw it, a vision, not with his eyes, with something deeper. He saw himself, but not as he was now. He saw himself standing in front of thousands, faces he didn't recognize, eyes filled with tears, hands reaching toward him, not to take, but to thank. He saw words leaving his mouth, words he didn't yet know, and those words were changing people, healing them, giving them the strength to stand when they had been on their knees for years. He saw a future where his pain had become his power, where the very thing that broke him had become the foundation on which others would build their hope. The vision faded, the light pulled back, and Kael was alone again on that rooftop. But something had shifted. The air felt different. He felt different. You were not broken by accident. You were broken so you could understand what it means to be shattered. And one day, you will teach the shattered how to become whole. Kael dropped to his knees, not in defeat, in release. Every tear he had swallowed, every scream he had silenced, every moment he believed he was worthless, it all came crashing out. He cried like he had never cried before, because for the first time, someone had seen him, not his weakness, not his failure, but his purpose. The years that followed were not easy. Kael didn't wake up the next day with money or a family or a home. He still slept on cold floors, still went days without food, still felt the sting of rejection and the weight of loneliness. But something inside him had awakened, a stubborn, relentless belief that his suffering had meaning, that his story wasn't over. He began to write, on scraps of paper, on walls, in the dirt. He wrote about pain, about fear, about the feeling of being invisible. And slowly, people started to read. Other forgotten children, other invisible souls. They found his words, and they felt seen. They felt understood. And that understanding became a spark. By the time Kael turned 17, he was speaking in shelters, in schools, in places where broken people gathered and tried to remember what it felt like to be human. His voice was still quiet, still scarred, but it carried a weight that couldn't be ignored. Because he didn't speak from theory, he spoke from survival. And the people listened. They listened because he didn't promise them it would be easy. He didn't sell them false hope. He told them the truth. That being chosen doesn't mean being spared. It means being trusted with a burden that will either destroy you or transform you. And the choice is yours. One night, years later, Kael stood in front of a crowd of 10,000. The lights were blinding. The noise was deafening. But in that moment, he closed his eyes, and he was back on that rooftop, back under that sky. And he heard the voice again. "Do you believe now, broken child?" Kael smiled, a real smile, the kind that comes from a soul that has finally made peace with its scars. "I believe," he whispered, "not because you chose me, but because you saw me when I couldn't see myself." The sky doesn't speak to everyone, but it speaks to the ones who need it most, to the ones the world has abandoned, to the ones who sit alone in the dark and wonder if their pain has a purpose. And when it speaks, it doesn't promise comfort, it promises truth, that you were never broken by accident, that your cracks are not failures, they are the places where the light gets in. And one day, when you are ready, those cracks will become the very thing that lets the light pour out of you and into a world that desperately needs it. Kael was not saved by the sky. He was seen by it, and that made all the difference. Because sometimes being chosen doesn't mean being given an easy path. It means being given a purpose so powerful that even your pain becomes sacred, even your brokenness becomes beautiful, and the child the world forgot becomes the man the world can never ignore. The sky chose him, not because he was strong, but because he was willing to let his weakness become his greatest gift.